Welcome to After Dark at the Fixed Ops Roundtable, featuring Cara Delane and Ted Ings. This episode is brought to you by BG Products, partners beyond products. And now for your hosts, Ted Ings and Cara Delane.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to After Dark at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm gearing up for the 80s. How about you guys?
Absolutely
as well.
Love it. Cara, we're getting ready for the 80s. We got some amazing featured guests tonight. Really excited to welcome back Cindy Reynolds. And lo and behold, someone I have not seen for a long time, but you know what? Long overdue. Steve Mason, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thanks so much, Ted. Thank you very much. And nice meeting you too, Cara and Cindy, both of y'all.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Ted. I appreciate being back.
You know, Cindy, I'm thinking that when that wanted poster came on in the beginning there, because we're just getting over the Wild West, and Cara, like she said, we're getting ready to go to the 80s. I'm thinking that Steve was hoping his picture wouldn't appear in that wanted poster.
I didn't know whether I should drive to Wyoming or apply on or interview on Bonanza. That opening was everything.
I love it. So, Cara, now we're on tonight on LinkedIn and what else?
Facebook and YouTube. So hopefully everyone is sharing the video and commenting down below tonight.
Great. And we want to thank our exclusive sponsor for the After Dark show on Mondays and Wednesdays. It's BG Products, partners beyond products. And we're so grateful to BG for all they do for our industry. And I've got my Tully button on tonight. And Steve, it was not that long ago that you and I and Tully were in Los Angeles at the Beverly Hilton, kicking off that very second Fixed Ops Roundtable with our good friend Dave Foy.
Absolutely. Tully is a great guy. I always walk away from Tully like when you were young and you walk out of a movie after watching Rocky win a boxing match and you feel like you could walk out and start boxing yourself. That's the way Tully makes me feel. I'm ready to run out and run through a wall.
So I got to tell you, Cara, that when we had our event in the Beverly Hilton in September, Steve, that's when it was, 2019, Steve gave all of the participants, which were about 100 at the time. In fact, I've got Cindy a picture here from that roundtable. Here's everybody gathered around the pool that morning. I think it's right around the time Steve was about to speak. And Steve, I think I'm in the center there in the front row. I think you're over to the right. If I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that front row, about 5 or 6 in. But Steve gave everybody, Cindy, a Hershey bar that morning. A little tiny Hershey bar, and started telling us the story. And then later he exceeded our expectations. Steve, fill us in on what you did with that Hershey bar.
So my preface that day was to talk to everybody about, what they can really do if they apply themselves. And I'm really, really big on that. And I gave everybody a small chocolate bar. Cindy, Cara, everybody got those really small ones you can get. You hand them out at Valentine's. So I talked to them about what can happen when you apply yourself, when you just take your job serious, when you decide you want to be a professional, when you don't have to hit the snooze button, when you wake up and you're ready to go be a winner. And I ended it up with everybody, if you will just apply yourself, this is what you get. And I gave everybody the huge jumbo chocolate bars at the end. And it was a cool time. It was because we all just talked about what we wanted to do. It was a fresh event, Ted. It was your first one, I believe. Is that right?
It was the second one, but it was the first one in a venue like that. Yes, absolutely. For all intents and purposes, the first big one. Yes. And
it was just to create we just kind of all got together and became friends, and we all talked about what we wanted to do. And it was just a fun time. And I mean, I really I love the fact that everybody still reaches out to me to this day and says, hey, I'm waiting on my next chocolate bar. I get those messages on LinkedIn all the time, but just the fact that they remember it's great. It really is.
Do you remember what Dave Foy called it? And a lot of people did. They called it the Woodstock of Fixed Ops. That's how that was known, Cara.
My man, Dave.
That's another theme, Ted.
Woodstock. Well,
I'm ready.
We have no shortage of themes, Steve. So
gonna lose the cowboy hat to dress up like Janis Joplin.
So Cindy, I had a cousin back at about that time. I was maybe 10 years old. I would say maybe early 70s, right? And he had just come back. His father is my father's brother was his, anyway, but it's my uncle, okay, his son. He had just come back from Europe, and he had all these records, right? These vinyl records, and he had stuff I had never seen before. So he had Janis Joplin, he had Jimi Hendrix, all the stuff that, you know, I was not even allowed to have something like that in the house, right? And so I thought he was really, really cool. And then he was with us for about a week. And then I never forget, because he had to go to Minnesota or something for something he was doing. And he said, "I'll see you later." Okay. And me as a little 10-year-old kid thinking, I'm going to see him later. Cindy, I didn't see him for like 20 years. Right?
Oh, no.
So,
Yeah,
so Cindy, you know,
yes.
a lot of good times in the car business. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff happening right now in our industry, a lot of change going on. And you and I have been talking about that, and you've been involved with that for a long time. And talk to us a little bit about what's going on in terms of culture, because, you know, everybody on here tonight is a big believer in that, and, you know, the need to strengthen that culture in retail.
Yeah, I always appreciate you bringing that around to me. I really love talking about it because culture and behavior go together. And so the culture is going to be a reflection of the behavior in each dealership. And I think for myself, you know, right now I'm just really focused on modernizing the customer and the employee experience and their journey. And, you know, when I say modernize, I've had people ask me, what do you mean by that? And it's a great question because everyone thinks differently of it. And for me, it's just a more interactive, whether that's the customer or the employee, there's just more interaction. You have more input, more ability to see what your options are and what you would like to do. And so I think until we are really looking at changing the culture within the dealerships, and not only again for the customer, but the employee, that's really the big focus. It's a mindset change. And the thing I love is I actually did this back, I hate to say this, but late 80s, early 90s. And it was incredibly successful. And what was so successful about it was it was so consistent. Everyone could depend on exactly the way it was going to work. And I remember people would fly in from all over the United States to pick up their new, especially Dodge pickups from us. And the amazing thing is when they walked in the door, I would always notice they were on guard a little. No matter how smooth everything had gone, they were still, and you're thinking, all of a sudden I realized, they realize they're captive. Like they're waiting to see, are they going to still be the same people they were, or are they going to change? And it only got better. And I always loved sitting in my office and watching the moment you could see their body relax. And it was like, okay, they realize it is going to be exactly what they thought. It's exactly the message, and the vibe is still carrying over from all of the phone conversations, the email conversations. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about culture. It's just really having a consistency, and it's also having your team involved in creating that. And so yeah, I think it's really due for a major overhaul, but a really great one that creates a lot of less stress for everyone. And I will tell you from experience, it's much more profitable.
Cindy, you know, I got to tell you, you are probably hands down Cara Delane's favorite guest when we do these events. And she has told me as much.
Well, thank you, Cara. In fact, if Cara knew, our backgrounds are a little similar. So sometime I'll be happy to share that.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that. I have told Ted that I love every time that you're on the show or we get to talk, because I love your outlook on the industry and different things that we can implement as women in the dealership.
I really appreciate that. You know, I had one of those unique experiences, especially as a woman in the industry. And so it's so hard for me to understand the opposite mindset. I think that's why I stay so positive and confident, because I lived it. And I had a great owner that we were more like partners and colleagues, and we just created everything together. So I had a really great experience.
Amazing.
Steve, I've seen you in a variety of situations in retail, and you are a culture builder. You are a team builder. I've watched you do that under all kinds of difficult, if I may say, circumstances. And talk to us a little bit about that and the importance of that culture.
well, now more than ever, it's everything now. And I love what Cindy says. I said this earlier today, where we right now have come as I guess as a culture in the car business. You have to have a trickle down, and that trickle down has to start with how you treat your people. And how you treat your people ultimately is going to be how they treat their customers, or your customers, excuse me. The one thing that I'm seeing right now that can be alarming is I caution a lot of salespeople to now grab a customer who is now saying, hey, listen, I know everything about the car. I don't need to drive it. I just, I want to go straight to price. And what is happening now that I see is that salespeople, it used to be you wanted to sell the sizzle, not the steak. and now they're so anxious just to ink the steak that you're now getting, and listen, I understand that customers are always going to want to negotiate, but the moment that you stop building value in yourself and the automobile, and mainly the experience, you're going to see your growth go backwards. To Cindy's point, and she said it best, you're going to see your profitability go up if you can figure out the balance between creating the right culture at work and teaching them the value of showing that value to the customer. And really, and this is just my opinion, Ted, it's all right now in the experience. Mm-hmm. It's all in, can I treat my salesperson the right way, make them understand that, and I say it all the time, the salespeople are the glue. I don't care what anybody says. They're the ones who ultimately are going to be the face of the dealership. They're the ones that are in front of the customer. So if you can just teach them the right culture to make them understand how important now more than ever the experience is, you're going to win. That's my opinion on it. I don't know how you feel on that, Cindy. That's just kind of where I sit with it right now in today's climate.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you, Stephen. And on top of that, I think what we're looking at is, there's got to also be a mind shift in leadership in dealerships. Certainly. Because leadership inspires people. You can manage the process, but it's leadership that is leading people. And when you're leading people, the key to that is recognizing their potential and their potential within your organization and unleashing that and helping them see things they can't even see themselves and help them to understand it, how to bring that out. And so I think that a big key that the industry has missed, especially at dealerships, people love to grow and develop. They love to get good feedback from people that is, and not necessarily always positive, but feedback that helps them understand how to grow and develop into more of who they are. So I think we're going to begin to see that. I've mentioned a couple of times, I think there will be a new role that gets developed at stores, and that is a coach. And it will be a high level person.
In regards to culture, Ted, I'm going to tell you something I've said my whole life. And when I met Cindy tonight and when I met Kara tonight for the first time, I always opened up the same way. Nice to meet you, ma'am. Mm-hmm. I believe that if you can't, as a leader, walk out of a room and everybody feel important, mm-hmm. then you're just not really good at what you're doing. Yeah. And that's, I will tell you something. When I get to work early in the morning, and the only person here is our lady who does cleaning. She gets here early in the morning, cleans up. And once a week, I'm going to bring her breakfast, or believe it or not, I'm going to make her breakfast. That may sound strange to everybody, but it's not strange at all. And by the way, I don't do it so that I can say I do it. I do it because I appreciate her.
Yep.
Yeah. Everything starts off with every single individual, and everybody gets treated the same. And I wouldn't ask that lady, her name's Rosalind, I wouldn't ask her to do anything that I wouldn't do. And I wouldn't ask a salesperson to do anything. And as a leader, it's my job to be able to put myself in their shoes and say, I'm willing to walk that mile with you, no matter what that mile is.
Kara, that really hits home. I remember when I was down in Madisonville at your dealerships, getting in there early in the morning. I remember a couple times in particular at the Ford dealership that the first person that I met there was that lady who was in the showroom and she was cleaning. She was often there even before some of the service people, service advisors. And Kara, that is so true.
And it is. And sometimes those are the most positive people in the dealership, which is so surprising to me because we often forget they're always in the background, or they're always there early in the morning, late in the evening, and they're always watching us. They know a lot more about the staff there than a lot of people do. And so I always take a minute to get to know them, get to know their family, and because I see them every single day and I appreciate them. So that's a great point, Steve.
Sure.
Steve, you work for a great group, the Berglund Group, and in the green room, we were just all four of us were chatting before we went on tonight. There's also another big group, okay, that's in the area, and that's Liza Borges at Carter Myers Automotive. Do you think it's any accident that the culture at a Berglund or a Carter Myers CMA, is part of that secret sauce as to why those groups are growing and continuing to expand so rapidly?
I think that word gets around when you treat people right. How's that? That's my opinion. I think that everybody knows, and I said this earlier, Ted, everybody I know likes Liza. I've never met anybody who said they didn't like Liza, and I haven't even asked anybody. I don't need to. I can tell you that, touching on my personal life real quick. I just recently, lost my parents, and that my bosses here openly gave me a month off of work to take care of things that I needed to take care of. Now, I got to ask y'all something above and beyond. If we take pay and throw it out of the equation, why would I want to work for anybody else?
Exactly.
I'm just saying that. If you think that the value's in the paycheck, then you're wrong. If you think the value's in the people, you're right. That's my opinion. My value, I got to sit down in Las Vegas and speak with Liza for about 45 minutes. And I don't mind telling you that I'd want to work for her. That's the truth. I mean, some people, and what did I say earlier? If you have a way of walking out of a room and making everybody feel better, then you're okay. And anybody who's spent any time talking to Liza respectfully feels that way. I can tell you that I have a boss within my group, my immediate supervisor, Mr. Plunkett, is hands down the greatest guy I've worked for, hands down, because he called me when I was out taking care of stuff. He checked on me. It was never, when you coming back to work? It was always, are you okay? And I just can't say enough positive things about him and the group. And, I think that goes and speaks volumes towards a little bit of what Cindy was talking about. How can we as managers kind of shift our way of thinking and realize that our people are the real value in the stores now. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
Cindy, what do you say?
Yes, I totally agree. And, I said this on a roundtable after dark recently. Yeah. And it's really the foundation to any relationship starts with trust. And so trust is so important. And it's one of those things that if you can establish that with your employees, then how are you planning on them establishing that with your customers? And it's just not going to happen, because typically whatever the employee is struggling to trust, whether you understand what it is or not, they're going to struggle with that in front of the customer just because they don't have confidence in it and they know it's not going to work. And, we talk about all of the things that customers don't like. And I also now just really talk about it on the same level with employees as well. And most people that work at dealerships, if you talk to them, actually don't even like working there. Like somehow they got into it and they just aren't out of it. And we need to change that if we're going to change the way, customers feel towards a dealership as well. And it's really not that difficult. But I will say that I saw a picture recently on LinkedIn, and I bring Ed Roberts up a lot with Ted because I think he's just a gem for this industry.
He's great.
It was a picture that spoke volumes, and he's sitting at a table. He's surrounded by all of these younger people, and they're collaborating because they're creating something together.
Yeah.
I think that just speaks volumes, and you rarely see anyone in this industry post a picture where you're actually sitting at a table with people collaborating, creating something new. And I honestly had tears in my eyes because it was like, this is what this looks like. And I think that's important as well. I think we have to begin to hear what it looks like. Like we have to help people understand that's the story of what collaboration looks like. Like, here's a picture of it. Because a lot of times people think about collaboration. I don't even know what it is that conjure up in their mind, but it's not that picture. And it really needs to be everyone is giving their input to create the best possible experience for first the employees and then for the customers.
Steve, I've seen similar pictures at dealerships that you lead of you, pictures of you very often, okay, in doing that. And by the way, Cindy, Steve comes from an automotive family. I know how grateful he's been to with his parents. His father, a parts manager for many years, and he and Steve sharing some of the secrets on fixed operations. I remember a lot of the conversations that Steve has shared with me. Yeah, Cindy, why is it that not all leaders embrace that that collaboration? Some choose to do it, and some, stay at an arm's distance and stay far away from that.
I think it goes back to two words I used a few moments ago. They're not growing and developing themselves. Mm-hmm. And so because they're not involved in that process, whether it's they're doing it on their own, which most people don't, but let's say they've never worked with an executive coach, or they've never been involved in any type of, group that is happening. And it usually is, you've got to be open to feedback about yourself, and you've got to want something to be better. And if they're not of a mindset to do that in the beginning for themselves, then they don't see the benefit of it for others around them.
And Steve,
so I was in an interview with the Hennessy Group in Atlanta, Georgia. This was long while back. Great group.
Yeah. And
so they asked me, what is your greatest management accomplishment? They said, what is your greatest management accomplishment? And I said, my very first porter came to me and asked for a raise, a 25-cent raise. This was in 2001. His name was Julio Martinez. I talked Julio into becoming a salesperson. I trained him every single night at my house. Now, my thing was, Julio was at the time making $5.50 an hour. He wanted to make $5.75, and his reasoning for that was he had a baby on the way. I talked him into coming to my house for 60 days straight. I taught Julio the importance of how to sell cars. After that 60 days, I don't mind telling you, this is something I'm super proud of. I will be my whole life. I took him and I bought him 5 pair of slacks, 5 shirts, 2 pair of shoes, because I wanted him to look like a pro and act like a pro. Mm-hmm. And right now, to this day, Julio is the general sales manager of Toyota of Brownsville, Texas.
Wow.
And so to Cindy's point, and maybe Ted, it's tough because the one thing, and I guess the elephant in the room is there's still a huge group of managers that want to make themselves look good by making people look bad. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of that. That's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. So when people will say, okay, when people figure out a way to say, okay, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to wake up and I'm not going to worry about myself, but if I can make everybody else around me better, I promise you, I'm going to be the benefactor also. That's it. That's where I stand. That's where I wake up. That's where I go to sleep. I know so many guys will talk to me and say, man, my boss won't let me do this. If I say go right, automatically he says go left. And I think a lot of that could be based on what Cindy said, that they maybe never had a coach or whatever. But listen, there's still so much in the auto business. And this is my opinion, Cindy. There's still so much insecurity amongst leaders because the culture's bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That they have a tough time promoting, and that's too bad. But that's just kind of what I see and hear out there. And it is what it is. I don't believe in it. I want everybody to win. And if I have my way, Steve Jobs said that he didn't hire people smarter than him so he could tell them what to do. He hired people smarter than them so they could tell him what to do. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of in that boat. That's where I'm going to be.
Cindy, I agree I think you'll agree as well.
Absolutely. And he actually said something that I was going to come back and say. And, so many leaders and managers in a store will say, but this is the way it was done to me. And so they're going to give that back when really the mindset should be, this is the way it was done to me, and I want it to be better for you. And that's exactly what Steve is saying. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. And, we've used some terminology in the last few months, Ted, and I'll bring it back around, it really is beyond that transactional relationship. I don't want to just be a commodity in your store. I want to be a human being that is actually bringing value and making an impact to the success of this store. But then I also think sometimes we have to stop and decide how are we going to define what success is? And how do you know when you truly have been successful and it's working? We have numbers we can look at, but I think we have a lot of people in stores that are just numbers driven. And I do believe that is very important, but you always want to have the picture in your head of who are the people underneath those numbers holding that up. And that's why that you've got to focus on people first.
Yeah. Steve, your thoughts?
What's that, sir?
Your thoughts?
Oh, she's right on. Yeah. I mean, she nails it. I mean, she absolutely nails it when, you know, and I guess that there's a way to define success other than, you know, gosh, you know, it's not based on how much you made. It's not based on your yearly earnings. I base success on how well my employees are evolving and putting themselves in a position in life to be successful. That's it. I mean, that's where I think the true success lies, in my opinion. Gosh, and I'm not gonna stop. And hey, listen, I'm not gonna lie, Cindy. I'm tough on people at times. I'd be misleading if I said I'm not. But that's a tough love. I don't believe in timeout. Nobody put me in. My dad didn't put me in timeout, everybody. I got to tell you something. My dad, I mean, but you know, he had a plan for me, and whatever his plan was, he did his job well. And I can't thank him enough, because I'm not here without what he taught me. My employees, if I don't put them in a position to pay their bills, and a real quick story, without saying the guy's name, I had a guy come to me. He's an employee, and this goes to your point, Cindy. He called in the day after the Super Bowl. He called in and said, "Hey, man, do you mind if I don't come in? I'm hungover." That's what he did. This is the world we live in sometimes. I'm going to tell you something. I told him to go ahead and take the day off. And the next day he came to work, and I took him out after work. I said, "Do you mind going out after work? Can I talk to you?" Took him out to dinner, sat down with him. I bought him dinner. I said, "I need to have a talk with you." I said, "How old is your child?" And he said, "She just turned a year and a half. She's 18 months. And I said, "Man, do you want to feed your baby and be successful? Or do you want to be hungover and unemployed?" Mm-hmm. I said, and I'm not, by the way, at that point, I'm not trying to humiliate him. I'm trying to make him understand the importance of a life's lesson. Mm-hmm. This is car sales, everybody. I got news for everybody. That's the only job that you can work, and you don't have to be a college grad to make a phenomenal living. If you will just apply yourself. I refuse not to let people get their best out of themselves. And that's it. And hey, listen, sometimes that comes with a little bit of intensity, but that's a good thing.
Cindy and Steve, we have a big event coming up at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. It's going to be in May. It's going to be our 20th event. Hard to believe, Steve. This one is going to be themed back to the 80s. So we thought it appropriate tonight, since the four of us are together, before we go, that Kara give us a little bit of trivia. And I'm not sure what exactly she has up her sleeve, but Kara, take us back to the 80s. And by the way, I love the 80s here too.
Thanks. I'm getting in the spirit. And hopefully everybody on here with us tonight is a fan of 80s music. Okay. So the little slide here is going to show a bunch of different artists, and you have to choose which house you would be in based off of all of these wonderful artists.
So house one, I see, Steve, it almost looks like The Cure. It looks like almost these were from different parts of the 80s too. The Police.
Absolutely.
Now, house two, Blondie, that would have been real early 80s, right? Joan Jett, The Car. Although I like the Cars. They were around for a while.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The Go-Go's, that was early 80s.
Oh, yeah. House three, hide your wallet.
It almost looks like I would want to just take one from several and build a new house, but
right.
I don't think I can do that.
So, Kara, is the question, I guess, which house are we, right? Each of us.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I know that there's some that we're going to love from each house, but if you had to pick just one, what would it be? What would yours be, Steve?
Boy, I tell you what, I would have to say for me, it would be house 7.
7.
House 7 is really, really. I like some of the other houses, but you got a few one-hit wonders in there. So I mean,
Rick James, Steve. That's got to be your favorite.
Listen, I mean, me and Michael Jackson are gonna sing Billie Jean together at some point in karaoke. I mean, House 3, I was tough because House 3 I loved too, but House 7 I think is everything.
So,
All right.
And Shaka Khan, are you kidding? Man.
What about you, Cindy?
What's interesting is that my high school and junior high was the 70s. So I came from a really great era. And believe it or not, I really loved rock music and hard rock music. So when I got into the 80s, somewhere I mellowed out. So it's so funny because people that knew me in high school would absolutely die if they knew I was going to choose House 6. They would be like, who are you? But yeah, I really
Hey, I will tell y'all one thing. House, as I sit here and look more, there's nothing wrong with, and Cindy, you need to look at this one too. House 5 is pretty strong also. I can tell you that.
I know because I loved Journey. So
that's my house.
And I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like I could take The Police. I liked Wham.
Yeah, I like Kara's hairstyle so much. I think when we get off, I'm gonna sing faithfully and send it to her in a
Please.
Yeah.
So Cindy, you're a House 6.
I would say a House 6. Yes.
Ted?
You stole my thunder. I would say I'm a House 6. You got Phil Collins in there, Billy Joel from here in New York, Steve Winwood. Although if I have to go with a different one, Kara, if I'm not allowed to keep the same as Cindy, I would probably say, Steve, maybe a House 4 with Prince. Duran Duran, I tell you, that's a lot right there. And Culture Club too.
Oh man, Ted.
Boy,
and Wham. No, don't forget Wham.
Wow. Funny.
And Kara, what are you? Which one?
I was House 5.
There you go.
Oh yeah, she's right on.
The 80s hair bands. I mean, Guns N' Roses, Journey, of course. I've seen them in concert. You just can't lose. Bon Jovi's great too.
Yep. Kara, when I was in 8th grade, I saw Queen in concert, and I got to tell you something.
Yeah.
Queen is, hey, they're special. I promise.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Well, we're gonna have to leave it there tonight. What a great way to close. Steve Mason, great to see you again. Thank you. So we can't do this so far apart anymore. We got to come back and we got to do it again. So
next time I know we're doing 80s, I'll bring my toupee.
Yes.
And Cindy, you do so much for the industry. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Cindy, really pleasure meeting you, ma'am, and you also, Kara. Really, really my pleasure. And Ted, I love you, man. Thanks for everything, really.
Love you too, Steve.
Thank you.
Super stuff.
Thank you, guys. Great to meet you, Steve. Great to see you again, Cindy, my favorite guest.
My pleasure.
Kara, thank you.
And thank you all for watching tonight and playing along with our 80s games. Get ready for Back to the 80s coming this May, and we will see everyone after tonight's show here again on Monday at 8 p.m.
Thank y'all.